Welcome back, everybody, to the Collector Series on WTCtv. Tony, we've got a great guest today. One third of the Card Foundation, Mr. Danny Tancredi, or is it Tancredi? I don't know which one you are.
I say Tancredi. Now,
You
this is
say
very much
Tancredi
up
and
for
Johnny's
debate.
Tancredi.
Hey,
Yeah.
how could your own name be up for debate? Come on.
No,
Well,
you know
this,
what? We're gonna get into a name thing right off the bat before we even start. I got a buddy, Phil Levy, and his sister Zara Levy, and I think they do it just to piss each other off.
Yeah.
so for me, it's my father, which I have to go by because it's his name. He's always said Tancredi.
Yeah.
My mom, on the other hand, says Tancredi. So there's always been a back and forth as to just picking a random one. But if you ask me, always consistently say Tancredi.
Right. So we're here with Daddy Tancredi. One third of the Card Foundation missing is his brother Johnny Tancredi and the inimitable Papa Bear, Papa Bear Paul.
I don't know. I mean, do we have the better third in this
Yes,
Well,
one?
that's
Maybe.
what he said earlier. He says, "It's just me tonight, but I'm the guy you want." And I'm like,
right,
"Yeah,
no
you're
question.
you're the guy that does all the work and all. Hey, uh,
Exactly.
One thing I've learned about these three guys is they're not modest at all.
no." Well, you know what? They deserve to pump their chest because when Michael Cole says on Raw, almost every show, the longest running episodic TV show, the Card Foundation is no doubt the longest episodic running podcast in the wrestling card hobby. And I just checked today, and you're on episode 166. I'm like, wow,
Yeah,
166 divided by 52. You're going on to 3 years.
yeah.
And have you ever missed a week? Like every Thursday, there's a new episode, and you guys, they're not 10-minute throwaways. You guys do an hour, and we'll get into the more
Mhm.
detail of it. But just off the top, congratulations on that. You guys have done a
Thank you.
fantastic job of keeping it going. And Tony and I know firsthand how hard it is, with our
Oof.
monthlies, we sort of slow down on that, and these shows,
Yeah,
just to coordinate and keep the enthusiasm up and keep it going because we do it for fun. None of us are making hay off this stuff. But
right.
fantastic job on that. So here we are with Danny Tancredi. We're going to talk about the Card Foundation podcast. But before we do that, this is a collector show. And before you guys started doing a podcast about collecting baseball and hockey, you had to be actual physical collector. So let's go back and because we don't have the other guys here, I'm going to talk to you, Danny, about
Yeah,
what you did, and then you can sort of fill in as much as you know about your brother and Paul as well. So
sure.
let's go right back to young Danny and what got you started in the world of trading card collecting.
Yeah, so for me, I was infatuated and have loved sports as early as I can remember. That was always my thing. Coming out the womb, I was meant to be a baseball player, and that's what I thought I was going to be. So my first passion in life was playing baseball, t-ball, and going through the years of middle school, high school, and college, and enjoying that process. But my older brother was the one that got me into pro wrestling. So our early days of watching wrestling was Attitude Era at its peak, WCW, WWE. We watched both at that time, and uh, our father was a big collector and always do conventions back in the day, and he saved all of his cards from his childhood and carried that through. So his love of sports and cards trickled right down to us, and it's a good way to bond with your family, like trading cards with both of my brothers and my father's teaching us about cards. It was just we loved it from day one. So whether it was that or wrestling figures and other toys, it's like we were kids that just dove right in and hopped in head first.
Nice. Now, did you and Johnny always get along insofar as you're collecting and we're always on the same side, or did it ever get
No, we were always good with each other. I mean, by nature, we're always going to try to work each other and get the best deals here for the cards that we do want. But no, my brothers and I, we always got along great. There was a lot of play wrestling in the house, so we did drive our mother crazy a bit. But
now when you
I
say
mean,
your
we
brothers,
were
you have your younger brother as well. Was it Steve? What was
yes.
your
My younger brother's name is Mike.
Mike,
Uh,
sorry, because we met
yeah,
him a couple of years ago. Yeah, Mike. And
yep.
he
He
was
was
into
down
it
at
as well.
one of the nationals, I think,
Yeah,
maybe Jersey. Yeah.
He's
correct.
So, no, I'm sorry.
we met him at the Jersey one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
So
did he
yeah,
did
he's a
video,
collector
of
as well.
course.
He dives into baseball cards, doesn't do any pro wrestling, but he's also an avid golfer. So he's starting to learn about some of the older boxes of golf cards, and there's new stuff coming out from Upper Deck. So yeah, he's a collector as well.
Does he collect golf carts?
He does. Yeah.
Yeah. See
So I know
today,
he has a couple Tiger Woods
Did you see
rookies, and
Scheffler today? He's already won. He's
unbelievable.
already won the thing, and is only a few hours in.
Yeah, him and DeChambeau put on some show today. It was great to
That
see.
was something else.
So
Now,
yeah,
wrestling,
no,
when did
it's
that come into the mix? Because obviously you would have started with baseball, yeah,
yeah.
and then eventually that your love of wrestling grew into cards. What era roughly did you guys start buying, or so was it just recently, or like
Yeah, I mean,
you go way back with the product?
yeah, we primarily focused, I guess, as kids, and it was just because we loved sports so much. It was always baseball and basketball. We were predominantly, collecting that stuff and hunting for it actively at, card shows and going to the mall and doing some shopping. But wrestling cards probably came around in like 2016, 2017, kind of when we all got back. At least my older brother got me back into the hobby in collecting cards and, kind of talking about, well, these are investments now, and you're hunting rookies and all the different things. So I really started educating myself at that point, and I was like, well, it seems like wrestling is like one of the, I guess, the least focused on things, and I'm like, wrestling's incredible. They get 2 million viewers a week. I love watching it on TV. Why am I not collecting this stuff? And I wanted to jump back in, and I remember picking up some boxes of 2017 Heritage and Legends of Wrestling and Undisputed, and just going crazy right off the jump.
It's cool that you're prescient, had the foresight to think about that because I didn't in 2016. I was just buying my sets oblivious to the value of anything. It
Yeah,
wasn't until after COVID and the spike up and I saw the numbers. Like I've always been into wrestling prices, but personally, I never sort of approached it that way. So here
yeah.
you are coming into it saying, wait a minute, there's value here because, this is product that's going to go up. And boy, have a lot
Mhm.
of it gone up, right?
Right.
You've
And I think
obviously
that's
seen it over the
yeah,
last few years on this stuff.
yeah, I mean, for me, it's like my baseball background. It's like just because we have that memorabilia background and aspect, like my father when we were young was always like, if you are going to purchase something, it's something you want to retain. Like, hey, you never know one day if you want to sell it, you want to keep it. We regret throwing away a ton of Pokemon cards. Like we were big Pokemon collectors, and now we look back at some of these things and like, man, we missed out on so many opportunities. But you learn from it. It's like going forward, if I'm going to work hard and work a 8-hour day job, if I spend my money, I'm hoping that at least one day when I sell, I can at least make some of that money back or maybe make more. And so it's like a love of cards, but also knowing that I'm spending my hard-earned money on something that I care about. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable doing it.
I
How
hear you.
much of your time is spent in deciding like what are you investing in and what are you actually collecting?
Yeah, I would say I'm a collector first and foremost. So like for me, I've been very open about my PC being Dolph Ziggler, and it's like he's not a guy that lights the world on fire in value, and I just think he's an incredible wrestler, and he's been my favorite since I got back into wrestling in that 2014 2015 period. But yeah, no, it's I go back and forth. It's really during the season. So like when wrestling gets hot right now in WrestleMania, I'm like, wow, I just saw Trick Williams win the main event of NXT. I should probably go pick up some of his cards because he could be a big star. So my goal is always I look for the cheaper stuff and hope that it booms one day. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I have failed with a guy like Velveteen Dream, and it's like I thought his character was just captured people's attentions. I'm like, this guy is such an investment, and it takes a turn for the worse.
Yeah, you never know
Man,
what's going to happen, though.
I hear that name, think of you though. Every time I hear that name.
Uh, it makes me cringe now thinking about it. I was like, how did I screw this up? But I mean, we didn't know at the time, so
No, but the
Even
approach is
today,
great. The approach is great that you're looking at it from a value perspective, also as a collector. Like, look, man, when I was a kid, I had rookie Gretzky's. I mean,
oof.
a few of them, and not a
Yeah,
clue. We were just pinging them around. They were in my Adidas bag, and I remember selling them and getting raped, and not knowing until years and years later, that oh man, I fucked up on that large way back when. I kept the wrestling cards, and I got rid of stuff that's worth millions. And it's funny
yeah.
because in real estate. I often say to my clients, I'm in the rehab business of fixing places up and especially rental buildings and stuff like that. A dollar in should get you a dollar and a half back minimum. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
that whatever you're putting in, your money's safe. You know, um, but if you do it right, the David Pecks of the world, they've made tens of thousands of dollars on
Oh yeah,
and it's kind of speculating, but it's kind of intelligent sort of forecasting is what's going to happen with the market, like you do stocks or mutuals or bonds or anything like that. Now, before we get off the history of you guys, fill us in on on Papa Bear's history, just because he's not here today. How did he get into collecting, as far as you know, and then we'll talk about the show.
yeah. Very similar to kind of the route we went to. It's just Pop Bear was also a kid that loved playing baseball and played high school and all of his life. So he was very very similar in terms of buying packs, going to the stores like we were, trading amongst friends, and yeah, that kind of just carried back into because he got back into it during the pandemic, just kind of like a lot of people did. And it's like, wow, like we could open cards and you could make $1,000 on a card. Well, I want to try now, like, and I want to collect some people that I am fans of and that I think are going to be great investments one day. So we all kind of had the same mindset and mentality, and I think that's what kind of brought us together. Was like, oh, we're three like-minded people. We love to talk. At the time, we had the Quote Looking podcast for Johnny and myself. And I know Paul was looking to get into podcasting and wanted to do something with wrestling. So we just thought it would be a great partnership if the three of us got together and, kind of bullshitted about it, which we did on the side anyway. So it's like, let's put out in the public now.
Yeah, it's kind of like Tony and I, we would just have conversations on the phone that we could have together in front of people, and you get knowledge out of that because we're two old dogs that know a lot about this stuff.
Hmm.
So let's go right back to the beginning, Card Foundation. It
Yeah.
was you and your brother, Johnny. Now,
Yep.
were Mike and your older brother not interested, or were you and Johnny just sort of closer to the idea of just doing something together?
Yeah, I would say for Mike, he didn't want to really get on that side of things. He just enjoyed collecting and just being a fan. So for me and Johnny, it was just kind of like when he initially got married and moved out, and that was kind of our way to bond. It's like, hey, let's keep talking about things we're doing, and obviously you want to see your brothers any chance you get. So it's like that's our bond of like, hey, we're doing this podcast thing. We're talking about sports and wrestling anyway. So like, let's just keep doing it and turn it maybe into something. Maybe we blow up one day and who knows, maybe we make money and it turns into a card shop. Like that would be a crazy dream that we've always talked about. It's like we would love to have like a new scale card shop. And who knows, maybe one day it happens. But we were looking at the podcast thing as like, sure, we hope to turn into a business. It'd be great making money doing things we love, which anyone would. But it was also like, hey, we love cards so much, like let's just talk about this everywhere. Let's meet other collectors and let's learn from it and see what other people are doing out there. And it's kind of led to where we are now.
Now, the first couple of episodes were just you and Johnny.
Yes.
And
Yep.
then the third one brings in Papa Bear Paul. So there's a
Yes.
double question here. First of all, where
Sure.
did you guys meet Paul? And when was the decision made sort of to have him jump on board the show? And then since that time, it's been the three of you and you've been inseparable.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explain how that went down with the two of you. Like you started it and then Paul came on board for number three and then it formally became like the whole advent of it. How did that come about?
Yeah. So the early beginning was that my older brother works with John Caruso, aka Johnny Clash, who was a wrestler in Brian Myers's Creative Pro Academy. So one day they were just talking at work. They knew that they were both wrestling fans, and uh, John introduced my brother to Major Wrestling Figure Podcast, and so we became fans of theirs because we were fans of theirs on TV, and we loved wrestling figures. So it's like, oh, this is great. Let's dive into this podcast, and we ended up going to all the live shows and we loved it. And sure enough, that kind of sparked Johnny and I to want to create our own podcast. We felt like we could do it too. So we started the baseball one. And Papa Bear, I forget if it was Papa Bear first or Brian Myers himself, became a fan of the show. And they were actually listening. And we were like, oh, that's pretty cool. So we get introduced to Paul through social media and the Major Pod Facebook group. And then from there, we just struck up a friendship and we're talking about cards and giving each other advice and seeing what we're collecting. And then as Call Looking winded down because we were really growing it and it was becoming too time consuming, we were like, we think that podcasting is better for the wrestling fan. Like they gravitate towards it more than maybe a baseball fan does. So we started Card Foundation, and by episode 2, we were like, man, like Paul is a great character. He's funny as hell. Like we knew he wanted to get into podcasting and he looked for someone else to do it and it fell through. We're like, nah, we should have him. And from there, he came on episode 3 and it's worked out since.
And what was the plan for the show? Like, did you have it scripted or were you just going to riff? Like, because you do it very organized. You do your rookie
Yeah.
section, you do your latest, your news and views, and and it's always since I've been listening, and I came on right near the beginning. You've always stuck to that format. So, what was the sort of initial plan of how the show was going to be developed and structured, at least in those early episodes?
Yeah, I mean, we modeled it straight after Major Wrestling Figure Podcast. We literally took it and we were just like, well, what are equivalent segments that we could do? And we try to make it like fan interactive, where we have our question of the week that starts at the top of the show. It's like, how do we make sure that when people do tune in and listen, it's fun to listen to? Maybe we're helping educate someone along the way that maybe wants to get into wrestling cards that has never gotten into it before, but maybe they know who we are from, just being on social media or our backgrounds or whatever. So yeah, we thought that would be the best route is to keep it organized. So every week we write out the notes. We have everything scripted, ready to go, and then from there, as we get in each segment, from there it's off the cuff. Like whatever comes out of our mouths, that's what's coming out. So
Yeah,
we
we're the
try
same
to,
way pretty much. You know, we
yeah,
we 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 have an idea of what we're going to talk about, but sometimes
yeah,
we
but
see things that we get off air and afterwards we're like, should we have said that? Well, oh well. It's.
no, for sure. We wanted to make it educational too, like being that we've been collectors forever and we're not the most knowledgeable collectors by any means. Like we make sure that we try to not step over those boundaries. So like, I mean, for us on our show, we don't really talk about vintage stuff, but then you guys have a show that you do and that you go into the history of wrestling cards. So we know that we could also stay in our lane and we could let all the other podcasts, YouTube shows, whoever's talking about wrestling cards, everyone can contribute something to the market and to the community. And we're not going to overstep our boundary and we're just going to have fun doing it. And hopefully, by having an entertaining show, someone's going to want to jump in and listen to us. So we're glad that there's other, YouTubers, podcasters, I guess you call it influencers like you guys to kind of continue to grow wrestling cards and the hobby in general.
Well, you've been very successful. Now, when Tony and I started out, Tony did the lion's share of the behind the scenes work. He had the Zoom set up and he was doing the editing and the titling and all that stuff. And then as he got busier with the store, it became more and more difficult for him to commit. So at some point we did a switch, probably around the time we started this collector show, where I said, "Okay, Tony, I'll take a bit of the load off you," and I did a lot of the behind the scenes stuff. So we switch where now he just hops on and that's it. He still does the uploading, but I used to love it because back in the old days, I would just come sort of saunter in, chat, and then know that he's got to do all this work, but I'm done. Um,
Yeah.
I understand that you do a lot of the behind the scenes stuff, the technical stuff, the editing, the writing.
Yep.
Has that always been your responsibility?
Yeah, it was from the start, which we kind of transitioned to breaking it off into like sections. So currently as we start, like I'm handling like the Patreon stuff and I'm handling the editing of the show. Johnny is now doing the notes and he's kind of like the brains behind the operation. And Johnny's the type of guy that just loves the nerdy aspects of collecting. So like it's perfect for him to kind of handle that as his assignment or role or however you want to put it. And then Papa Bear is kind of handling the social media stuff. So he's on the Instagram. He's an active breaker, so he is selling cards and he loves that niche of it too. It's like, hey, I talk about wrestling cards, but why not buy and sell and really get into it and show people what, I'm actively doing. So the roles fit for all of us and it's all perfect. And we kind of come together to make it the Card Foundation.
Well, speaking of that,
Nice.
let's talk about the Filth Bomb connection and the whatnot. I know that's Paul's thing, but
Yep.
you can talk a little bit. How's that been going? Is he still as active, the head of the card table, still doing that on a regular basis, or is that
Yeah, he's Pop Bear is dedicated. He literally will go on vacation with his family and bring product along and rip from the hotel. Just so that way every Monday he is on, it's the same time slot and he is so committed to it. I mean, it's respectable that he's out there doing it every week like that cuz I couldn't do it. If I'm on vacation, I don't want to talk to anyone. Like I'm I'm done. So yeah, he loves the grind and he loves being a part of the community and uh yeah, I mean, for Johnny and I, like we kind of dropped back just because, like, for us, it was overly time consuming, like with work and some of the other stuff that we had going on. So, Pop Bears kept it going for us, and we're always watching his break, seeing what's going on because I feel like if a new product comes out, the best way to kind of view it is to maybe watch a case break. Like you're gonna hit all the different inserts, base cards, rookie cards, and you got a breaker that's actively talking about it while he's ripping. So it's a nice way to kind of dive into a set even before I want to make my determination if I want to buy it or not.
and of course Paul's very entertaining. He's a character, so you know that
Oh, for
people are
sure.
yeah that people are going to enjoy watching him.
hmm Yeah, so I mean the Filth Bomb connection, he was
Yeah,
good
how'd that
friends with
come
the
about?
owner of Filth Bomb. So as Filth Bomb was expanding, they wanted breakers for kind of each sport and division. So wrestling is so niche that like he was one of the only games in town that can do it. And plus it helps that, everyone's on Long Island, so the commute too is easy for them to kind of pull that off. So Pop Bear dove right in and became the wrestling card breaker for them. And just like they have their baseball breakers, football, hockey, like all the different sports. So it fit in perfectly for him.
And how did the whatnot thing come about? That was just new on the scene, and you guys or Paul thought that it was a good avenue to sort of try because it's
Yeah,
become one of the preeminent places now, right?
right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it was revolutionary where No one's ever had like live auctions like that before. I mean, you have eBay, but to also turn into like a show and the theatrics behind it, it became entertaining to it's almost like watching a TV show where if you get some of these funny breakers out there and they're having a good time and you're communicating with your chat and going back and forth, it's a lot of fun. And I had a great time when I was breaking on Whatnot and doing it myself. And then Fanatics Live comes along and they're kind of the one of the big top dogs now. And Filth Bomb has a partnership with Fanatics, so we've since made the jump to where we're breaking on Fanatics Live.
Oh, see, so an association now with them, so it's not a
Yeah.
competitive kind of thing. That
No, I mean, and it's
that's
funny
very
too, because
cool.
like Whatnot, not to shit talk Whatnot, and don't mind me diving into the behind the scenes here, but
No, please.
there was a lot of empty promises on Whatnot's end that we were just like, we don't know if this is going to be the platform for us anymore. So ultimately, when Fanatics Live came out, it was like, okay, the relationship's already there between Filth Bomb and Fanatics, just from growing their brand and growing into the hobby. So it's like, yeah, Fanatics Live is going to be the place for us, and Whatnot. There's plenty of wrestling card breakers on there. Why not be the first on Fanatics? So it all worked out in a nice way.
We all know where this hobby is going vis-a-vis Fanatics. I mean, I was looking
Yeah.
at Fanatics Fest today at the Javits Center in New York, and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
thinking, is this going to give the National a run for its money? I mean, no one's going to ever overtake the National insofar as vendors of cards, but
Mhm.
looking at the way they intend to do this show, it's like very forward thinking and tying in a lot of diverse elements of the collecting segment together. And I thought, yeah, there's Michael Rubin again, two
Yep.
steps ahead of the rest of us, you know what I mean, figuring out the way the world is going to work.
Well, I'll ask
Um,
you guys. I mean, is that something that you have interest in going to? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, Tony, we've never even talked about it. You know, the National is the National, and the Fanatics Fest this year is like 2 weeks after the National. So it's tricky to go to one and then sell the wife on I'm going again in 10 days for for another one. But
Yeah.
I'll be keeping an eye on it. I mean, I think it might be more geared towards higher vendors and maybe not. I mean, they're trying to make it for the general public, and we've seen how massive the National has become. So
Yeah.
when you see something that big, you right away think, well, this is right for competition. You know, when you have something that's almost a monopoly on in the space, and you've got a player here that's funded and is slowly creeping his tentacles into all aspects of the hobby, from breaking to manufacturing to all the licenses and all that stuff, all that Fanatics has accomplished in these last couple of years. Um, Very interesting to see where that goes. So it's cool that you mentioned that you're on Fanatics Live now and Whatnot, even though Whatnot's still a very big platform, that your Fanatics is of choice. And yeah, Tony, we'll be talking more about that, I suspect, Fanatics Fest and where that's going, and if that's something that the wrestling card world, who knows? It might not even be that door might be, not for guys like us. We don't know where it's going. Like I have a feeling the size of it is going to be, the scope is going to be quite a bit different, but very interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
Yep.
let's talk about product before you tell us some of your favorite moments from the show. Let's get your opinions on some of the new releases. Let's talk about Panini first. What do you think about Elite and the new Impeccable release?
Yeah, Donruss Elite was interesting. It's something that we've dove into just from looking at basketball before, so we kind of knew we were expecting with a bunch of parallels. We're gonna get our autographs in there. I thought initially the price point was a little too high for what we were getting, especially for being a paper product. And some of the autos look great, but then they kind of dropped the ball on some of it too. It's like a lot of smudging on, say, the gold autos that were coming out and the different inks that they were using. Uh, the inserts to me fell a little short. And the numbering was kind of weird, but overall, the more I actually got to watch the product get ripped open, I was actually enjoying it. And it seemed like other collectors were too. I mean, doing the double-sided auto was very unique, and I thought that was a nice touch. And we even just talked about this week, like one of our collectors pulled a Austin HBK one, and we're like, "What side do you display it on?" And we were
Right.
kind of going back and forth laughing about it. But yeah, I thought it served its purpose. I wish the price point was lower, and it would have been a home run from there. And then heading into Impeccable, I mean, another one, it's like this price is astronomical. It's like the common collector's not spending $1,000 on a box. There's no way. And then we talked off camera that, the price is already down. It's like, this is crazy.
But this is a good one for the audience to hear because we were trying to determine, and Tony and I, we talked about this on our monthly the other day, what caused it? Because this wasn't a 2022 Prism thing. You know,
Yeah,
why did it go up and why for that sort of brief time were people paying it? You know,
right.
because again,
I-
just to be clear, a box is one pack of cards with 9 cards. So you're paying $1,000 for 9 cards,
yeah,
right?
massive
Yeah,
gamble.
it's even
Right.
worse than I mean, when you think about it, I mean, for a lot less bang for your buck, that's for damn sure,
Yeah,
than Prism was. But I think we were talking off air too. I said, two major cards were already pulled from this release, and I can't think of, unless I'm missing something, that any other major cards that would warrant someone wanting to pay $650+ for a pack of cards. So maybe that has something to do with the price drop. Who knows?
yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
think collectors, like I'm a base card guy, so you can imagine. Like now, it's looking a little safer than we spoke last, Tony. That some of these lower tier names, I think people are breaking, and it's like, I don't want to Dolph Ziggler. I'm just going to put it up there for $5 and get rid of it, get something for it. You know what I mean? But of course, that's not going to happen with your Punks and your Alexa Blisses and your Hogans. And
No.
I'm seeing those go for like $100. I'm like, wait a minute, what bizarre world is this? And we've talked about this before, where the base card is worth more than the auto or the insert. But again, it has to do with seating. You're buying a case. In my day, a case was a case with multiple packs with multiple cards. Like you're swimming in cards if you bought a case. Nowadays, a case is a pack of 9 cards of 3 base cards. You know,
It's insane.
so
I mean, the
that
quality of the set though is it's
is good.
awesome. I love the championship debut autos that they do, the low serial numbered stuff. I mean, the photography from what I've seen so far has been off the charts, and Panini's really hammered the photography from day one. They've
Beautiful cards,
picked
no
cool
question.
images and designs, and they've done a better job of incorporating their legends more so than Topps has.
Yep.
So that's also a plus to see because these are the guys we love. I mean, there's Topps product that doesn't feature guys like Hogan, Stone Cold, and so many other legends. How do we get guys like you guys who like some of those old school wrestlers to want to buy in? And it's like if it's just all new characters and rookies, it's like there's nothing for everyone. You got to try to find a little something for every collector to maybe want to dive into the product.
Hey, as long as it's got Loomis, I'm good.
But that's a
Well,
good point. Like
now I'm screwed no Ziggler, so
you've got
I'm
your
I'm
vintage
out.
names. Like there's going to be like in the base set, there's an Andre, there's a Hulk Hogan, there's a Rock, there's an Austin, and we know that there's a segment of our community that's just after that stuff.
Yep. So honestly I thought Impeccable was going to be the end of the road for Panini. I really thought they were about to lose the license, especially the presence that Fanatics had at WrestleMania 40, at WWE World, and at the Superstore. I mean, they're just probably itching to get the WWE license to produce cards now. And we thought that with the lawsuit and everything, like maybe that's why the price jumped up because Panini's like, hey, we're losing license. Let's do one big cash grab and let's just end it, try to put on a high note. So we thought maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, where's your head at on that? During that time where we had nothing and we were just waiting to see where the chips were going to fall. Um, At that point, if I would have asked you, all right, Danny, do you want to go to Topps now, or do you want to let Panini carry on with another year of their product? What would you have answered, just based on your experience of Topps in the past and the way
Yeah.
Panini was going? Would you have liked to
I'm
have seen it go to Topps sooner than it's going to?
I want to say no. And it's because I've enjoyed of what Panini's put together. Like if Topps could do the Legends thing, better photography. I mean, the one set in 2021 Chrome, Topps Chrome botches the image variation and the base on so many different wrestlers. It's like,
Right.
how do you screw that up? Like they let so many small details fall by the wayside that it turned me off as a collector. But I do recognize like if I had to pick between Topps Chrome and Prism of what I just enjoy, I like Topps Chrome better. But
Same.
Panini's no doubt. I'm sorry.
I like Topps Chrome better too, so like that. But that's where the term, that's so Topps came from.
Yeah. Just from all the screw ups that were happening, it's like, oh, there we go again. That's so Tops. And eventually we're going to be able to do it again when they get the license back. But I just, I've enjoyed Panini too. It's like I've always knocked Panini about too many parallels as well, because
Absolutely.
then it does take away from rainbow chasing and maybe some of the values a little bit. When you got a million Roman Reigns parallels out there, it's like it's not really enjoyable to collect that anymore. Like I want to chase like 5 or 6 parallels and hopefully I can hit a one of one, get a rainbow of my favorite wrestler, or hit some good cards.
That's why I tapped out back in '06 when Topps Chrome came out, and I was like, I'm not doing refractors, X fractors, and super fract. I'm done. I'm done collecting because I was a master set collector in the true term of master set.
Yeah.
I was a master in everything. So I couldn't keep up with that anymore now. So I just, that's why I'm so thankful that I feel like I'm smart in the sense that I went ahead and changed my thinking and how I collect, and I don't do ghost sets anymore. I'm a player collector, and I just chose, I even put Kurt Angle in the back in the back seat now because I'm just doing the extra Loomis stuff, and I'm having the most fun still to this day.
But don't you think,
Just
guys, that the reason for this is because the market supports it? You know, that we get watered down with all these big name autographs, and this was a big issue for a lot of guys in the beginning. It's like, well, hang on, you know, we don't need to see these Undertaker autographs that is going to slowly push down the value that you're getting stuff for $50 because no one wants to see that. But um, you know, if the market bears it, is that not function, you know, cause and effect? You know, build it and they
sure.
will kind of thing because these things are selling. I mean, we just talked about impeccable boxes for 9 cards for at $1,000, you know.
Yeah.
Someone's out there
There's
buying stuff.
market's always going to dictate what's going to happen here. So I mean, as long as people are willing to pay for it, it's like doing the convention scene. Been doing that for damn near 30 years now, and it's just people will bitch and complain like, how dare that particular celebrity charge this kind of money for an autograph like that? You know, I can't believe the Undertaker's charging this kind of money. But you know what? Every time he sells out, so the
Yeah.
market says,
Yeah.
"I'm with."
And each time out is a little bit more. You know, we were
Yeah,
talking to Rich and Brian about the costs on some of these things, you know, like $400 to have someone, you know, done, you know, but
yeah.
that's the market. And
Also, why?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you know,
kind of.
one day Loomis becomes, you know, someone real famous, and all of a sudden that little squiggle is worth 10x, you know,
There
and
you go.
Oh yeah.
that's the way it goes.
But I don't even like it because I've been very open about it that I've never even watched the man wrestle once in my whole life,
That's the best
and
part of it.
but to me, it's an aspect of just somebody I randomly selected, and I decided I'm going to go after that person because it's a lower tiered type of price point for that particular star, and I'm enjoying it. And for me, it's the fun of it, and I'm having fun collecting the way I collect right now. I don't have to worry about putting. Do I still want to put together base sets? Now that I have the store, yeah, I'm looking at trying to put together, cheap sets of metal, cheap sets of, select, whatever I can put together that I can probably bring to the floor and still, charge a customer. But for me as a collector, it's just being a player collector right now and narrowing my focus once. Zan had a great live stream today that we talked about being a super collector and having superpowers and being a super collector. And so I chimed in on some of that, but it was really nice just to talk about, being focused, because now I'm focused on one thing. I don't have to worry about all this other noise going on. And I even within my lane, I don't care. There's 35 different parallels of somebody. I find something, I like it. I mean, shit, I've got multiples of the same parallels. I like to say that from the 2022 Revolution, only 4 Galactics have ever hit the market for Dexter Loomis.
Wow.
I I own
All the
all
rest
4.
yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah, for me, it's been frustrating because I've always collected sets, and of course, the way that sets are put together have changed now. And for me, it's like I'm kind of forced into this. Now, I could tap out at any time and say, okay, fuck this, I'm out, you know. But I've
Yeah.
been doing this for a lot of years, you know what I mean? And I got a lot of sets upstairs. And until I
Because
just
because you've been in it for so many years doesn't mean that you're forced to still take the same bumpy road.
no,
You can
especially when it's bumpy. And one morning I'm going to wake up and say, that's it, I'm out. And maybe everything's for sale. But until that day, I still
oh,
have that compulsion to get the sets. You know
Yeah,
what I
even
that's
mean?
think
why
about
when
it
you
too. It's like, oh, go ahead,
Right,
Tony.
Tony?
I said that's why when you go down to Mexico from Southern California, you go down to Mexico, you get the bumpy free road, but you pay the nice smooth toll road to go down to Mexico. So depends
Yeah,
on which one you want to do.
except for me, the tolls have quadrupled.
Well, even just that last thought there, it's like I think about it too, like as a kind of a new school collector, and we look at like the junk wax there, and it's like, okay, there's a million Ken Griffey Jr. base cards out there with no variations, or we could have a Roman Reigns totaling a million cards, and there's a couple different variations. It's like maybe the thought was people want shiny and colorful, and hey, maybe we just make it a little more interesting. We know there's a million of these cards out there, but let's tier them and maybe drive some value that way or make them more collectible. I'm sure they probably wanted both avenues there.
Again, it's
Yep.
what the market bears, right?
Right.
Very
So
cool.
clearly the market's okay with it, but otherwise be having this huge backlash from people and there'd be less sales of wrestling cards like that. But the market doesn't seem to be. I mean, Jesus, we ended 2023 with the reports for all the markets and collectibles, especially in the trading card market. Everything was down. It's a buyer's market across the board. The only thing that had a green was wrestling.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, I can tell you honestly, like Gallows and Anderson, you know, on the impeccable base. Yeah, I'm like, $5 will do it. No one else is going to want to buy this card. And gone, and you lose. So even at the lowest tiers of collecting, like Tony and I spent a lot of time highlighting expensive stuff, the Johnson rookies or autographs, Dwayne Johnson, all the big stuff, the Hogan all stars and stuff in the thousands of dollars. But sometimes you see, and you would know it, I guess, Danny, being a golf collector, you probably see some stuff all the time where you go, you know.
Well, it's funny because I compete with some people on eBay. I'm like, where the hell did these people come from? I'm supposed to be one of the old E. Ziegler guys out there. And,
Well,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're paying more than $10 for a card. You're thinking, wait a minute, there's guys out there.
yeah,
And
and there's certain.
that's the flip side of being a super collector, though, is because then your kryptonite, as Zam was talking about today, your kryptonite basically to your superpower here is that people become aware of what you collect,
Yes.
and now they hold it for ransom, or they're going to, just to spite you, maybe it's like that. If you got detractors or haters out there, going out just want to bid something up. I mean, there's a bad side to being a player collector, a super collector as well.
Well, a public one, like when you're the guy, you're going to get 95% of us wanting to help you, but there's going to be that 5% that's going to say, wait a minute, let's make sure that this card doesn't go to this guy.
And it's always that one of one that I want.
Oh, I was literally just gonna say it.
Yeah.
There is a 1/1 immaculate Ziegler auto patch on eBay right now, and that card has been sitting at $1,000 for as long as it's been up. And his stuff, his 1/1s and the higher end stuff, always sit around give or take 400. So in my head, I'm like, well, I have a bunch of 1/1s. It's not worth more than 400 or 500, and it's just
Correct.
sitting there and it's driving me crazy.
Yeah, and eventually you'll get it for 400, I suspect.
Told them any. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Have you tried to even reach out? I'm sure you have. Try to reach out to the guy and try to make a deal in some way, shape, or form.
I haven't actually.
I had a guy recently.
Say.
For me, it's funny because I don't do a lot of eBay stuff, but lately I've been checking stuff out. I mean, for over a year, I've been trying to find some lucky envelope, Loomis cards, and until a couple weeks ago, none have ever surfaced. Especially 2022. Still haven't found any 2022s yet, but 2023 showed up, and the guy had up there for $50. I'm like, that's grossly overpriced for Loomis for lucky envelope. So I sent them an offer of 20. It got auto rejected, and he came back to me in a message, saying that he was looking for something closer to what his actual listed price was. So I proceeded just to kind of go back and forth with him, and I let it happen. Of the one time I should have thrown that, do you know who I am card when it came to this, educate me on how wrestling cards work.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And the history of cards. And I'm like, well, he hasn't been on TV in over 9 months. Like, that doesn't matter about wrestlers, man. I'm like, okay, man. And then within 24 hours of the conversation, another one showed up on eBay.
There you go.
For 15 starting price. I offered him 10. Boom, took it. I got it for 10. So
wow.
Well, perfect.
Those
That
are the
happened
best
to me
moments.
once. I was in the middle of a negotiation with the guy, and the guy sends me a screenshot from the wrestling card price guide of what the thing was worth. And it says, "Oh, this site says that it's this." I'm like, "Oh, that site says that, huh?"
You should have went
Anyways,
back online and dropped it quick.
yeah,
all
I could
good.
have.
I don't know what
I could
happened.
have went into the Google table and said it was worth half that and say, "Look now." But
Yeah.
anyways, before we wrap up, I just wanted to talk about memories from the show because you guys have done so many. I think Tony and I would agree, like we do a lot of shows, but our Christmas one with Chuck is always our favorite. We always say
Yeah.
afterwards that we enjoy that one sort of above all the rest, just because it's fun and it's that time of year. In all these episodes, 166, was there anyone in particular, Danny, that was your favorite that you would say, okay, this one was one that stands out?
I know what it was. Where he had to sit. He had me guest host.
Yeah.
Oh, the third man.
Yes, the revolving third man gimmick that we had to go through. For an individual episode, I would say it's tough to pick a specific one. It's just it's like the moments that happen. So like the birth of Danny Drip Trip for me and getting a nickname. It's like, Papa Bear thinks he's kind of making fun of me, ha ha, whatever. And people in the group loved it. So like what's supposed to be a joke at me turns into something because of like our listeners thinking it's hilarious. And I just think it's the entertainment aspect that we try to tie in because the knowledge about wrestling cards is great, but we want the listener to smile, laugh, have a good time so that maybe next week they want to come back or they want to maybe tell a friend and say, hey, like this show is awesome. Like you should check this out. Like they talk about wrestling cards and that's hopefully what we gain from it. So it's all that stuff. And then eventually it's just leading to the people we get to connect to. Like if I didn't have a wrestling card podcast, I don't know you guys. I don't know Joe Schmo from the Facebook group. Like I just got back from WrestleMania 40, and I met people at the Major Pod show that came up to me. And they were like, "Danny from the Card Foundation." I'm like, first of all, you should not know who I am. This is completely random, and it made me feel really good about like what we do and how we do
Oh,
it.
no, you
And
guys are
I'm taking,
known. You guys are
yeah,
known.
it's shocking.
I was at Sport Expo in Toronto, and some dude, tall guy, and I'm 6 feet, had a Card Foundation T-shirt in Toronto. And I didn't know who he was. Never, so I struck up a conversation. I said, Card Foundation, huh? And we started talking, and you guys are out there, man. And
It's
it's
crazy.
because it's because of the great job that you've done and the consistency of it. And Tony
Yeah,
and I talk about that. When you start to lose your consistency, then you can't take your foot off the gas with this stuff to sort of keep people's interests up. And there's
right.
always something going on. And you guys have done a masterful job of sort of segmenting your show, the rookie sections, the news and views. And I'll be honest with you, I like listening to what you guys have to say, because when it comes time for me to think about what Tony and I are going to talk about, you guys are spot on with a lot of your perspectives, especially on the new
Yeah,
stuff.
thank you.
You know what I mean? Obviously, I listen to what Ryan and Adam have to say about the new breaks, and that's how I learn, because all I know is singles basically, so
Mhm. Yeah, and it's interesting too because like again, without so many other collectors, like we dove into wrestling, and it's like, well, what resources can you turn to? And there's so few. So it's like, how do we figure this out? How do we navigate? How do we look up prior sets? And all of a sudden, it's like you type in wrestling trading cards into Google, wrestlingtradingcards.com pops up. It's like,
sure.
oh, now I could go in a checklist and I could punch in Dolph Ziggler and I could see all of his cards come up. It's like this is the way navigating and learning about something should be done. So we just try to pass that out to whoever wants to listen to us. And from there we met so many awesome people that are in this community. It's like there's nothing better. I mean, I have legit friends now that I talk to weekly that collect wrestling cards, and it's like or are just big wrestling fans that I never would have met before. So that's the reward of it all. It's like that we just get to share the experience with everyone.
Yeah, same for us. Now we're going to see you in Cleveland in a few months' time.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be down in Cleveland,
Awesome.
and I'm hoping Wrestling Card Night's back because the first one it was incredible. What a great time, great turnout too. So I'm pumped.
Awesome.
Yeah, we were pretty stoked about that. I mean, Paul and I, when we first started talking about main event number one, we were like, man, if we can get 40 people to show up, it's going to be a success. And then have 175 people show up for that event that night, and then watching all the interactions, like I stood around like a stupid little kid because I was just so taken by just how big it really got. It's like that. And to think back from when I first started collecting and I first started putting WTC together because there was nothing out there to educate me, I just thought, wow, it really came a long way, man. And I was like so happy to see where it was at. So now with all the plans that's going on behind the scenes for this main event too, holy shit, it's going to be huge. So
That's
it's
gonna
Yeah,
just
be good.
great.
There's gonna be dinners this year. There's gonna be a much bigger main event, which is part of the actual
It's
national.
actually part of the national now. It's under the national umbrella now, not some like offshoot place from.
Right. And we'll be doing a panel again. Of course, you and your brother Johnny were on the first one, the inaugural one. We can never take that away
yeah.
from you.
Oh,
That was
so much
loads
fun.
of fun. So it's just nice to see everybody, and we're hoping that we get new faces out this year as well.
Yeah,
Guys that we communicate with on a regular basis. We love to see them all, and that's what it is. And I think Tony, what you're just saying about the early days, um, how there was just me, you, Grim, Chuck, and just a handful of people sort of that were out there that you could find online. I think the hobby has grown, not just the product, but to the point where we have something to try and custode over, or look over. Like there's been a lot of sets over these last 10 years. A lot of stuff has happened in wrestling cards, from the early days. And we've seen it sort of grow. We've seen it sort of get critical mass. And I mean, we're holding our own. I think we're going to be put in the room at the National with some other lesser sports, but ones that are on the rise. So that's going to be something. Tony,
Yep.
anything else for our friend Mr. Tancredi?
Yeah,
We're going now. I've got that
I,
down. Tancredi versus Tancredi.
I have to air out some grievances here with Danny here. So
oh no.
Here we go. Festivus.
here we are. Oh, well, my battery's running low, just so you know. Secondly, I'm still waiting on my card foundation cards, man.
I knew you were gonna say it. No, and it's funny because I literally have a pile that is somewhere in my room right now, and it's literally like off limits. Haven't done anything with it. It's
Which
because
card
it's
is this? Do I have that one? Send them two of whatever it is.
I
I
have
I
I,
got to double
I
up.
have zero card
I have
foundation
one.
card.
I have one foundation card, I think. I think he gave it to me at the first national.
I literally I'm trying to
Oh,
see
I think he
actually
handed it to me.
is this one of them right here? Oh no, this is Yeah, I have a pile off to the side that it's dedicated for you guys. There's autographs in there. There's base cards. There's quite a bit.
But how great is it that we care about each other's cards? Like, oh, Danny, you got a card, I want it.
The collector series too. That's just it still boggles my mind that like, well, first of all, you guys picked us for series one. It's an honor. And the fact that every year it sells out. It's like it's a kudos to everyone that's just participating in this whole thing. Like, who would have thought that you don't see it in baseball and basketball, fans collecting each other's fans cards. Like,
Well, it's probably too big, right?
non-existent.
I
And
got
here we are.
Ryan Shear went out and got everybody to sign that first series, and he presented it to my store for my 1 year anniversary this year, and
Incredible.
it hangs up nicely in a frame up on the wall. And so people will sometimes be like, well, what is that? Like, who are those wrestlers? And I go, figuratively speaking, yeah, kind of.
Well,
Yeah.
two of them, Myers and Cardona, are in there.
Well,
Yeah.
that's series two.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they didn't get the honor of series one. That
No.
belonged to all of us.
No, you guys were in the inaugural. So
Right.
anyways, Danny, thanks a million. And once again, congratulations on the success of the show.
Thank
Look
you.
forward to seeing you in a few months' time. Give your best to your brother and to Paul. Hopefully we'll see them too. And we'll sign off for now. Thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you next time.